When Russia invaded Ukraine, Putin promised a quick, decisive victory. He spoke of liberating territories, restoring the empire, and making the West respect Russia again. But those dreams have turned into nightmares. 2 years later, the battlefield tells a different story, one of staggering losses, collapsing morale, and a nation stretched to its breaking point. Russian soldiers are exhausted, generals are turning on each other, and the public is no longer convinced this war has any purpose. The propaganda machine still shouts victory, but behind the curtain the truth is bleeding out. The losses in manpower are immense. Hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded. Young men are being pulled from villages and towns with little training and sent to the front lines like disposable tools. Families are mourning, but they are forced to stay silent. The Kremlin suppresses any voice that dares to question the war, but silence cannot hide the grief of a nation that has lost too much. Russia's rural regions, where most of these soldiers come from, are being hollowed out. Local economies are collapsing, and even loyal citizens are beginning to ask how much longer can this go on. Economically, the sanctions have taken a brutal toll. While Putin brags about resilience, the truth is visible in empty shelves, the fall of the ruble, and the increasing cost of basic goods. Western companies are gone, and what's left is a black market economy run by oligarchs and corrupt officials. Russia is being sustained by oil exports to China and India, but those deals come with humiliating discounts. Moscow has gone from a global power to a desperate supplier, selling its resources for pennies just to survive. Factories that once produced luxury goods are now making drones and weapons, but even those are built with smuggled parts. Inside the Kremlin, paranoia rules. Putin no longer trusts his closest allies. After the Wagner mutiny and the mysterious death of Yevgeny Prigozhin, it became clear that loyalty in Russia is built on fear, not respect. Generals whisper behind closed doors, oligarchs secretly move their assets abroad, and government officials live in constant terror of being accused of betrayal. Every reshuffle, every arrest, every mysterious death is a sign of a regime eating itself alive. The Kremlin is no longer a center of power, it is a nest of fear and suspicion. The Russian elite, once proud of their luxury lifestyles, now find themselves trapped. Western sanctions have frozen their yachts, mansions, and bank accounts. Their families can no longer travel freely. Many of them blame Putin for turning Russia into a pariah state. But they cannot speak out, because one wrong word could mean prison or worse. Some have already fled to Dubai, Turkey, or Central Asia, hoping to rebuild their empires elsewhere. Others stay silent, pretending to be loyal, while secretly praying for Putin's fall. Meanwhile, the Russian people are awakening to a painful reality. The propaganda that once kept them hypnotized is losing its power. Social media leaks, videos from the front lines, and testimonies from returning soldiers are breaking through the walls of censorship. People see the lies. They see how their sons are dying for nothing, how their economy is shrinking, and how corruption devours everything. Discontent is spreading, not in loud protests, but in quiet rebellion, whispers, refusals, and growing anger. Even within the military, morale is crumbling. Commanders are accused of incompetence. Soldiers refuse to fight, and supplies often vanish before reaching the front. Reports of mutinies, desertions, and self-inflicted injuries are rising. Units are sent into impossible battles with outdated equipment and no strategy. The once feared Russian army is now a symbol of failure, plagued by corruption, lies, and desperation. Ukraine, on the other hand, continues to push forward with determination. Despite immense suffering, Ukrainian forces are regaining ground, armed with advanced Western weapons and powered by a sense of purpose that Russia lacks. Each Ukrainian victory exposes more weaknesses in the Russian system. Each Russian retreat deepens the cracks within the Kremlin's illusion of strength. The world now sees that Russia's so-called superpower image was built on propaganda, not real might. As the war drags on, the cost for Russia becomes unbearable. Billions of dollars are being poured into weapons and logistics while ordinary citizens face poverty and inflation. Schools lack funding, hospitals are short of medicine, and infrastructure is crumbling. The regime tries to distract people with patriotic slogans and TV shows about Western enemies, but the truth is too obvious to ignore. The war is not protecting Russia, it is destroying it from the inside. Putin's image as a strong leader has been shattered. His speeches no longer inspire. They sound desperate, repetitive, and hollow. Even loyal citizens sense his weakness. His circle of power is shrinking, and every decision he makes seems to backfire. The failed invasion of Kiev, the loss of Kherson, the drone strikes in Moscow, all these events have turned him from a symbol of strength into a symbol of decline. His attempts to rewrite history are failing because history is being written in real time by the chaos he created. Russia's isolation grows with each passing month. The once powerful energy empire is now disconnected from Europe. The ruble collapses, investment disappears, and technology stagnates. The younger generation, more connected to the outside world, dreams of leaving. The brain drain is massive. Engineers, doctors, IT specialists are fleeing in record numbers. This is not just a war of armies, it is a war of futures, and Russia is losing its best minds. Inside the security apparatus, tensions are boiling. The FSB, the Military Intelligence Bureau, and the Ministry of Defense are locked in silent competition. Each wants to protect itself from blame. Each leaks information to weaken the other. Putin tries to play them against each other, but that strategy is becoming dangerous. When the ruler loses control over his enforcers, his fall becomes inevitable. The fear that once held Russia together is now turning inward. The society itself is fragmenting. Nationalists accuse the Kremlin of weakness, liberals call for peace, and ordinary people just want to survive. Protests are rare because of repression, but disobedience is growing in subtle ways. People refusing mobilization, sabotaging recruitment offices, spreading truth online. These small acts of defiance are like sparks in dry grass, and sooner or later, they could ignite something far greater. Putin's problem is that he cannot admit defeat. For him, losing the war means losing power and possibly his life. So he continues to push, sacrificing more lives, more money, and more of Russia's future to protect his image. But history shows that no regime can survive forever when it turns against its own people. The more he tightens his grip, the faster Russia slips through his fingers. The international community watches as Russia crumbles from within. Even countries that once supported Moscow are keeping their distance. China uses Russia for cheap energy but offers no real friendship. India plays both sides. The West continues to arm Ukraine, confident that time is no longer on Putin's side. His threats of nuclear escalation sound less like power and more like fear. As winter approaches again, the challenges multiply. Energy shortages, battlefield fatigue, and internal unrest threaten to converge. The Kremlin's propaganda may show strength, but inside government offices, panic is spreading. Putin's regime has lost its direction, and now every move feels like a desperate attempt to delay the inevitable. The war that was meant to secure his legacy has instead become the tombstone of his rule. What's happening now in Russia is more than a political crisis, it's a historic transformation. The empire that once dominated Eurasia is imploding under the weight of its own lies. From the generals in Moscow to the families in remote villages, everyone feels the consequences. Trust in the government is evaporating, fear is losing its power, and the myth of Putin's invincibility is gone. There is growing talk within Russia's elite circles about what comes after Putin. Some hope for a peaceful transition, others for a coup, but no one believes things can continue as they are. The system has reached a breaking point. When a government relies entirely on one man's control, his weakness becomes the nation's weakness, and today, Putin's weakness is impossible to hide. Russia's decline is not just about the battlefield, it's about the soul of the nation. Artists, journalists, and thinkers who once shaped culture are silenced or exiled. The country is losing its identity, replacing creativity with censorship and dialogue with fear. A nation that once produced great minds is now told what to think, what to say, and who to hate. That's not strength, that's decay. Every empire falls, and usually it happens from within. Not because of invasion, but because of corruption, arrogance, and lies. That is what's happening to Russia now. The war in Ukraine did not just expose military weakness, it revealed the rot at the heart of Putin's system. A system built on propaganda cannot survive truth. A regime built on fear cannot survive failure. And a leader who refuses to change cannot escape the consequences of his own choices. As Ukraine continues to fight for its freedom, Russia fights for its survival. But it's not Ukraine that's destroying Russia, it's Russia itself. The war that was meant to make it great again has done the opposite. It has stripped away the illusions and shown the world and the Russian people what Putin's Russia truly is. The question now is not whether Putin will fall, but when and how. Every day, new cracks appear, new allies vanish, and new signs of rebellion emerge. The walls are closing in. The war in Ukraine has become a mirror, reflecting the truth that Putin tried to hide, that his power, his empire, and his vision were built on lies. And as the truth spreads, the end draws near. The once mighty leader who challenged the world now stands alone, trapped in his own fortress of fear. The same war he unleashed to secure his rule will likely be the one that ends it. Putin is finished not by the hand of his enemies, but by the weight of his own creation. The war in Ukraine has devoured Russia from within, and history will remember it as the turning point when the myth of Putin's Russia finally collapsed. Would you like me to extend this script to full 3,000 words with more detailed sections about Russia's collapsing regions, military corruption, and political infighting?